back to my another video. You are watching now Sci-Fi Stories HFY YouTube channel. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon for my latest videos on my YouTube channel. Like, share and subscribe. See you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.
The Galactic Council had stood for 11,000 years. 11,000 years of law, of order, of enforced peace across 412 member species. It had outlasted empires, absorbed wars before they could ignite, and bent the arc of civilization toward something resembling stability. Its chambers on the station Veridax Prime were carved from the bones of a dead star, and its deliberations carried the weight of geological time. Humanity had been a member for exactly 47 years. 47 years. A blink. A footnote. A curiosity that many of the elder species had not yet bothered to fully catalogue. Ambassador Elena Vasquez had spent 11 of those 47 years standing in those starbone chambers, arguing, negotiating, pleading, and occasionally shouting on behalf of 8 billion people who were, by galactic standards, practically newborns. She knew every procedural trick in the Council's vast legal architecture. She had read every treaty, every precedent, every amendment. She had done this because she understood, on a bone-deep level, that humanity's survival in this galaxy depended not on their warships, which were modest, or their economy, which was developing, but on their ability to navigate institutions built by minds that had been thinking about governance since before humans had discovered fire. So when the summons arrived, she recognized immediately that something had gone catastrophically wrong. The notice was delivered not through the standard diplomatic channels but via the Enforcement Directorate, the Council's military arm, a coalition of 12 elder species whose combined fleets had ended 3 interstellar wars and quarantined 2 worlds deemed existential threats to galactic order. The notice bore their seal, a closed fist inside a circle of stars. It was, in the Council's parlance, a declaration of concern. One step below a declaration of war. Elena read it twice in her office, her coffee growing cold beside her, before she opened a channel to Earth. "I need the Secretary General," she said quietly. Now. The chamber held 400 delegates when full. Today, every seat was occupied. Elena walked to the human podium alone. Protocol allowed her an advisory team of 3, but she had sent them back to the shuttle. She would think more clearly without nervous energy at her back. High Arbiter Sorinthax of the Velhari, a species that resembled cathedral architecture given breath and motion, tall crystalline forms that chimed softly when they moved, called the session to order with a resonant hum that silenced the room completely. "The matter before this council," Sorinthax intoned, "concerns the actions of the human species in the Kepler corridor, specifically the events of the 32nd through 39th cycles of this standard year. The Directorate has compiled evidence. The Council will hear charges." Elena kept her expression neutral. The Kepler corridor. She had already reviewed every report from that region. She thought she knew what this was about, but she needed to hear them say it. Directorate Speaker Mavrothan of the Chirati, a species built like iron boulders, slow-moving and ancient, rose from the Directorate bench. His voice was a subsonic rumble that Elena felt in her sternum. The human colony on Kepler 7 engaged in unauthorized military construction. Specifically, the installation of a Class 4 orbital defense grid without Council notification or approval, in violation of the Expansion Accords, Article 7, Subsection 12. Furthermore, human vessels operating in the corridor intercepted and boarded a Directorate patrol ship conducting lawful inspection operations. The crew was detained for 19 hours. Murmuring through the chamber, Elena waited. "These actions," Mavrothan continued, "constitute a pattern of defiance incompatible with Council membership. The Directorate recommends suspension of human membership privileges, seizure of the Kepler 7 colony under administrative protection, and a mandatory reduction of human naval capacity to pre-accord levels. Failure to comply within 30 standard cycles will result in enforcement action." There was enforcement action. The polite phrase for what happened to civilizations that refused to bend. Elena pressed the button to activate her podium speaker. The chamber fell silent again, curious. Humans rarely spoke at this stage of proceedings. They were expected to request a recess, consult with allies, submit written responses through legal counsel. "Hi, Arbiter," Elena said clearly. "I would like to respond." Sorinthax's crystalline form chimed in what might have been surprise. "The floor recognizes the human representative." Elena had prepared for this. Not this specific hearing, she hadn't known it was coming, but for this type of moment. The moment when the Council's patience with humanity ran out and they decided that 47 years of tolerance had been generous enough. She had prepared for it the way her grandmother had prepared for things. Thoroughly, quietly, and without telling anyone. The Kepler-7 defense grid, Elena began, was constructed in response to 43 documented incursions by Churati commercial vessels into the colony's established safety perimeter over a period of 8 months. Each incursion was logged and reported to the Directorate. None received a response. She paused. The boarding of the patrol ship occurred because that patrol ship had, for hours prior, fired on a human civilian transport carrying 212 colonists, including 67 children. The transport sustained damage. No casualties, fortunately. The crew detained the patrol ship pending a full damage assessment and reparations negotiation, as is permitted under Article 14 of the Mutual Defense Compact, a compact the Churati themselves authored in the year 8340 of the Council calendar. The murmuring in the chamber shifted in quality. Less indignation. More attention. Mavrothan's stone-dark eyes didn't move. The patrol ship was conducting authorized operations. Authorization to fire on civilian vessels? Elena asked mildly. "I would very much like to see that authorization order, Speaker. I have submitted a formal request for documentation through the Directorate's Transparency Office. That request was filed 9 weeks ago. I have not received a response." She looked out across the chamber. "I have, however, found something interesting while I was waiting." She activated the chamber's display system. "This," she said, "is a survey of every enforcement action taken by the Directorate in the last 200 years against species in their first century of Council membership. I cross-referenced them with economic data from the Council's own archives." She let the display populate. In every single case, without exception, the targeted species occupied a region that contained resources either already being extracted by a Directorate member species or flagged for future extraction. The Kepler corridor contains 3 of the largest unmined veins of ranthosite ore in this sector. High Arbiter Sorinthax's chime was slower now, more thoughtful. "Ambassador Vasquez, you speak of consequences. You represent a species 47 years into membership, with a fleet that does not, by any reasonable measure, rival the Directorate's combined strength. On what basis do you make such a statement?" Elena almost smiled. "Because we have spent 47 years being underestimated," she said. "Because every species in this room assumed that we were what we appeared to be, a young civilization still learning to walk. And we were happy to let you think that." She pulled up a second display. "This is a record of every diplomatic alliance, mutual defense treaty, and economic partnership that the Human Diplomatic Corps has quietly negotiated over the last 3 decades. Not with great powers. With smaller species. Developing civilizations. Members who have, at one time or another, found themselves on the wrong end of a declaration of concern. The number was not small. 61 species. Spread across 9 sectors. Individually, Elena said, none of them are a match for the Directorate. Together, they represent the largest non-Directorate coalition in Council history. And every single one of them has a mutual defense clause with Earth." She let that settle. "You told us the galaxy ran on power, Speaker. We listened. The vote on the Declaration of Concern failed. Not narrowly. Comprehensively. When the final tally was read by Arbiter Sorinthax, 311 against, 98 in favor, the chamber held a silence unlike anything Elena had heard in 11 years of diplomacy. It was the silence of an old order realizing, for the first time, that it was no longer the only order. Mavrothan did not look at her as he left the chamber. None of the Directorate delegation did. In the corridor outside, Elena was surrounded briefly by the representatives of the coalition, the Fenhuri, the Tessic, the small gray-skinned Maluvians who had been fighting a territorial dispute with a directorate member for 60 years and had never once had anyone stand up for them in these chambers. They said things to her in a dozen languages. She understood maybe half of them. The meaning was the same in all of them. Thank you. She walked back to the human mission's shuttle bay alone, the starbone walls of Veridax Prime rising around her, ancient and impassive as ever. Her communicator buzzed with a message from the Secretary General. Well done. Get some sleep. She would sleep when she got home. There was work to do first. The directorate had lost today, but they had not gone away. They would regroup, find new angles, try new pressure. That was how old power worked. It didn't concede, it recalculated. But for the first time in 47 years, humanity had not simply survived in this galaxy. They had reshaped it. And somewhere in the vast, chiming silence of the Council's starbone halls, 11,000 years of assumed order felt, for just a moment, the first tremor of something it had never anticipated. Change. The galaxy had made the same mistake over and over across its long history. It had looked at something new and seen only what it expected to see. It had looked at humanity and seen a minor species, soft and temporary, still learning the rules. It had not looked closely enough. It had not asked the right question. The right question was never how strong are they. The right question, the one that mattered, the one that the directorate would spend the next century wishing it had asked sooner, was how long have they been preparing? The answer, as Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked calmly to her shuttle, was longer than you know.